I think we both favor Jason the Argonauts as our favorite picture. I think it was the best picture we did. I think it had highly imaginative sequences. When you talk about a seven-headed hydra, and when you talk about skeletons rising out of the ground, these are memories that you don't really forget. They're totally memorable, and they don't remind you of any visual thing that you've seen.
This monstrous figure was only the beginning of the film's wonders.
In the original story of Jason and the Golden Fleece, there was a character in it called Talos, although he was not as large as we depicted him in the picture. He was only 8 feet high. But when I started the design process for the sequence, I felt we could get much more menace if he could be about the size of the Colossus of Rhodes. And this became a great opportunity to combine the concept of the Colossus of Rhodes with the Metal Man. And I had to make his movements very stiff and ungainly because he was supposed to be made of metal. So we put the sound effects of creaking joints and creaking metallic sounds scraping together to give that eerie effect.
Spectacular as he was, Talos was fairly simple to create, compared, say, to the Hydra, who guards the Golden Fleece. Easy to imagine a seven-headed monster, fiendishly difficult to animate him. Todd Armstrong, playing Jason, had the easy job. He only had to slay the monster. Ray had to bring it to persuasive life. All those heads in constant, simultaneous, menacing motion.
There were many times when I regretted even thinking of the Hydra for the film. He presented so many animation problems that I didn't anticipate. Number one, if the telephone rang and I was in the midst of animation, I would forget sometimes whether this head was going forward or backwards, and this head going up or down, and the various other problems with the other heads. It became quite confusing.
Ray always worked alone, without assistance. Since there's more to seamless animation than perfect movement, he would often stay overnight in his studio to make sure the temperature of his lights remained constant. If it varied, the colors in his work wouldn't match that of the live-action footage. Ray's masterpiece and most famous sequence, the mass rising of the dead in Jason. In its complexity, it had no precedence in his work or anyone else's.
Those who steal the Golden Fleece must die.
Skeletons are really my best friends, so 7 of them was quite a challenge, and I hesitated developing that idea because what I put on paper has to be put on the screen. That's one of the sales gimmicks, so I try not to draw anything I can't possibly do.
Kill! Kill, kill, kill them all!
You have 5 appendages on each skeleton, so that means 7 times 5 is 35. You have to make 35 moves when you have 7 skeletons on the screen for 1 frame of film. And that meant at certain periods when we had all 7 skeletons in the same scene with the 3 men, I was only able to average about 13 frames a day.
That's a little over a half second of film. Ray worked on this sequence 4.5 months. Before that, its live-action elements required meticulous planning. This still shows stuntmen helping the actors rehearse. When the players had their movements perfectly memorized, the stuntmen stepped out of the picture, and the actors shadow-boxed opponents they would not see until the film was finished. 1 million years BC took Ray back to a far more distant past, and to his own beginnings as a boy whose imagination was fired by the drama and adventure of prehistoric times. Ray's actors These models, which now reside in a Berlin museum, were as anatomically correct as his study of paleontology could make them. Because this was a fantasy film, he felt free to bring together creatures that had lived in different geological eras. That included human beings who did not share the Earth with dinosaurs or pterodactyls.
Miss Raquel Welch had to be picked up by an animated pterodactyl. That made it necessary that we construct a small model of Miss Welch so that she was able to be animated at the same time as a pterodactyl. We dug a large hole in the sand, and at a certain point, Miss Welch would throw herself into the hole. The miniature Miss Welch would be substituted. The animated character would pick up the miniature Miss Welch and carry her off into the skies.
Mixing and matching figures from different ages was a delightful Harryhausen specialty. In the Valley of Gwangae, cowboys encounter prehistoric creatures in the remoter reaches of Mexico, circa 1900.
The Valley of Gwangae was actually a product that Willis O'Brien originated and was working on for about a year. It had all the elements. It had the dinosaur, which was very popular. It had the cowboys. Cowboy pictures at that time were very popular. So we felt if we could combine these two elements, that we would have a good chance of success.
This sequence had been a particular favorite of O'Brien's when he conceived the film in 1942.
I wanted that sequence to be kept in more than anything else. But the one problem technically was that we had to have something for the cowboys to rope. So we put a pole on a jeep, and the cowboys would throw their lasso over the pole, and then I would eliminate the jeep and substitute Gwangae. And then, of course, each frame of film you had to animate a miniature wire going over Gwangae's head and still have it connected to the source.
Keep him tight!
Ray also loved to bring together mythological figures from widely disparate cultures. The Golden Voyage of Sinbad and Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger are his freest explorations of these possibilities.
Even though in the Muslim world they would never have a figurehead on a boat, we took that liberty to have Sinbad have a figurehead aboard his boat. And it gave Sinbad an encounter with a very unusual element.
They became golden voyages through the myths of the world.
The Griffin and the Centaur both come from legend and mythology. The Griffin is of possibly Norse origin. The Centaur comes from Greece and may go as far back as ancient Indian mythology.
They had originally planned to shoot Voyage in India, hence Kali. She stayed in the picture, even though it was eventually made in Spain.
In order to rehearse all the 6 arms with the actors who were playing the part, we had to strap 3 stuntmen together with a big belt. It was rather a grotesque sight on the set, I must say.
She was many hands full of trouble for John Philip Law playing Sinbad. Trog, short for troglodyte, was a sort of missing link and the most touching figure in Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger.
No harm. We mean no harm.